In today's video, we're going to be visiting another sawmill and checking out his layout and seeing what kind of business he's got going on. And in case you're wondering, this fire's pretty hot back here. I better move. You guys hang in there. Welcome back to the sawmill, friends. We got the truck warming up. You guys know what that means. It's time for a road trip. We're going to head over to Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is the oldest town in this state, and check out another mill. You guys hang in there. So I started making YouTube videos in 2015, but if you go back further, I started sawmilling in 2011. I bought my very first sawmill that summer. It was a LT28 Wood-Mizer. And I've had 4 sawmills since then. Of course, right now we have an LT70. And since I've been sawing and making YouTube videos, the question's always been down in the comment section, or I get emails about it all the time, is how do you make money with a sawmill? How do you make money? How do you make it work? How can I have a side hustle with the sawmill, or how can I make it a full-time business? Well, there's a ton of different ways to do that. And I'm going to share with you guys today one way you can make it kind of a side business and develop it into a full-time business. Now, the place we're going to today is a great example of that. That's why we're doing this video today. This guy, his name is Daniel. He's got a small little sawmill business outside of Jonesboro, Tennessee on a farm. He runs a LT40. It runs all 3-phase, so it's an electric sawmill. And he does work a full-time job, but he does make a good side income running a sawmill on his days off. We're going to talk about that more when we get out here. We'll take a look at his operation, and I'll explain further how this is doable. So when I started my sawmill career, it was very similar to the mill that we're going to today. For the first 5 years, I sawed on the weekends. I was a part-time sawyer. I was still a police officer full-time, so I just sawed when I had the time, which was usually in the evenings or maybe on the weekends or stuff like that, or I even took vacation days sometimes just so I could have extra time to saw because I really enjoyed it. And that's the same setup that Daniel has here. He has a full-time job, but he saws on his days off and also around his shift work. And if you do stuff like that, you can actually get a lot of stuff done by really focusing your time on your work. So it looks like we're here, guys. This is a large cattle farm, and he rents out a few acres from the owner for his sawmill and his logs and all his equipment. All right, friends, Daniel took a break from sawing. He's gonna keep that fire going over there. He's gonna feed some slabs into it. And as you can see, most sawmills, guys, burn their slabs. No different here. That's why I burn mine most of the time. So his sawmill is a LT40 Super Hydraulic. It's a 2001 model. This one's kind of unique, or unique to me rather. It's got an electric motor on it, runs on 3-phase power. People ask me all the time, why don't you have an electric motor on your sawmill? And the reason is I don't have 3-phase power at my farm. That's not a problem here. You can see the cord coming off the sawmill right there, laying on the ground. It goes back and forth. It does not get in a bind. I was watching him saw, actually. I was curious about that. Then it comes over here. He's got it hooked on the building, going over there to the panel. As far as the cost of energy, I just asked him how much it cost to run this sawmill per month on 3-phase power. $50, and that's all. And he saws over here about 40 hours a week sometimes. That's pretty impressive. I wish I had 3-phase power. If I did, I'd probably run it to mine. That's a lot cheaper than buying diesel. So this is an older Wood-Mizer. It's a standard head. It's not a super wide, but it does have all the hydraulic features you would find on a sawmill like this. The designs of the Wood-Mizers have changed over the years. On my 40, my motor was not right there, and it wasn't that big either. It was a little bit smaller. But all in all, it's pretty much the same thing you see on the modern Wood-Mizers. And he does have another battery hooked up down here to power his hydraulics. So when the sawmill comes back, he don't have to do that every time to power the hydraulics. He can leave the sawmill on the other end and still come down here and run the hydraulics and not have to worry about the head being down here on that strip. So if you're running a sawmill out there that you have to walk with, that's an option right there in case you don't have to bring your head back to power the hydraulics. You can put another battery on it and do it that way. As far as his blades go, he's running an 1.5-inch blade. He used to run 1.25 inches, but I told him a couple of years ago about these 1.5-inch blades and how much better they cut. And he's not looked back since. It's all he runs. But the one thing you have to remember with 1.5-inch blades, you have to make sure you have enough power to pull those blades. Some motors are too small and won't pull them. This electric motor has no problem. So here at his sawmill, he pretty much specializes in hemlock. That's a soft wood. It's very similar to pine, although it's a lot better than pine in my opinion. It's extremely rot resistant. The carpenter bees don't like it. And it's a really good structural wood to build with. He does a lot of barn packages, barn siding, fences, all kinds of stuff. He sells it all green straight off the sawmill. In case you're wondering how busy you can be with a sawmill setup like this, if you called him right now to place an order for some barn wood siding or some fence siding or who knows what you want, maybe some 2x4s, it's gonna be 2 months before he can get to you. That's how busy he is. That's pretty good, 2 months behind. And there's something else he does here at his sawmill that I really like. He buys old sections of guardrail, and that's what he puts his logs on. So right here in front of the sawmill, he's got 2 of them laid out, and he's also using that for his log yard as well. That keeps them off the ground. It makes everything look pretty neat. And he's got a pretty good handful of these right now. I'm probably gonna come back in a few days and buy some of these off of him. I like the way it looks. What do you guys think? And his business is expanding. He just ordered some trusses and he's getting ready to put up a building over top of his sawmill so he can saw in the dry year round. And as far as his layout goes, over here behind the sawmill, he's got more guardrails set up, and that's where he lays out all his orders right now. He's got some 1-bys pretty much all through here. Looks like he's got some fern strips right there and some 1x12s on that side. Pretty good layout for a guy like this selling a lot of green wood, because you don't have to sticker this stuff right here. You can dead stack it, put your binders around it, and send it down the road. And speaking of binders, this right here is what he uses on all his orders. He dead stacks it, which means there's no stickers in there. You just stack it on top of each other. Then you use one of these systems right here and bind it up. And let's talk about sawmill access real fast. He's got a nice big road coming in here. Nothing but slate and gravel, plenty of room for a log truck. His telehandler can actually unload a log truck. And plenty of room in here to turn around. So if you come down here to pick up an order, no trouble getting in here, and a lot of space to store logs. I'll tell you what, over here on this side, he's got some black walnut, and that's pretty much it. Looks like some old cross ties over there as well. All right, guys, it sounds like Daniel's sawing again. So this is his main log yard. Of course, he's got his slab pile over there, burn pile in the middle. And 95% of this stuff is hemlock, maybe even more than that. He's got some nice saw logs here. Several thousand feet. He does have some white pine right there in the very back, and he said he also has some red oak. It's too big for his sawmill. Way back there in the corner. And I may buy those off of him because he can't saw into them, and they're way too big for his 40, so we may come back to the trailer and get those one day. Looks like red and white back there. It's kind of hard to tell. I would get closer, but that fire is getting pretty hot. But most of his inventory, like I was saying, is hemlock. And he told me he buys about 20 to 30,000 board feet at a time. That's a lot of hemlock moving through here. That's a lot of wood. All right, guys, we are back on the road. I gotta head home and get to work myself. It's a really nice day today. But let's cover a few things here. And there was another reason, I don't know if I discussed this earlier, there was another reason I went over here today, and that was to buy some hemlock. He just scored right at 30,000 feet of hemlock, 16-foot logs from about an hour away, and I'm going to be buying a full log truck of those from him, which is right at about 2,400 board feet. So pretty good score for me, because I need to build a barn for the cows on the new cattle area we're putting at the farm, and I want to use hemlock because I really like hemlock. It's really durable, keeps the carpenter bees away, and it saws up really nice, and I've not got to mess with hemlock in a long time, so I'm really looking forward to that. And as soon as those logs come in at his location, I have a guy who would come haul those back to my place for me with a knuckle boom, so I don't have to make about 20 trips back and forth hauling logs in my trailer all day. And as far as the haul bill goes, it will cost me about $300 to have a knuckle boom log truck come over here and pick them up at his location and take them over to my place, which is about 10 miles away. So not too bad. I'll pay that all day. That's not too bad right there. And if you're curious what I'm paying for the hemlock, got to join the Patreon page for that. I don't put that information out here public. There's a link down below to that. So anyways, that was another reason for coming today, so I could buy some of that hemlock he's got coming in. Can't wait to get my hands on that. So he's still sawing. He's got a lot of orders to fill. Like I said, he's several months out. But the reason I brought you guys with me today was to give you an idea. If you're wanting to get into the sawmill business, there's a good fast way to get into it right there. You got the initial investment of buying a sawmill. Some people like to get a loan, some people like to save up and buy one. That's your personal decision with your finances. But once you get one and you have a source for logs, and you also do some market research and find out what in your area is selling. So in this area, there's a lot of farms. There's an endless amount of barnwood in this area that you can saw up for people and sell. Now, when I say barnwood, I don't mean old reclaimed lumber. I mean 1-bys, 2-bys, stuff like that for building barns and fences, because there's always going to be need for something like that around Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. So there's a definite need for that in this area, so he's met that easily with what he's doing. So after you get your sawmill, you do your market research. Actually, you do your market research first to make sure your area has a need for sawmill lumber. Then you get your sawmill, and you also have to think about location. So he's renting that spot off of another farmer. He doesn't live there. So you got to have a nice place like that for your sawmill. And also, you got to do some research on zoning and make sure the area you're putting a sawmill at, there's not any kind of zoning codes that's going to prevent you from doing that, because that does happen a lot for guys. I know people who's bought sawmills, got them home, 2 weeks later they're up for sale because somebody called or their neighbor called and said, hey, he's got a sawmill, and the county comes out and says, yeah, you're not zoned for nothing like that. You can't have that here, you know, and there goes their hopes and dreams just like that. Seen it many a times, many a times. So that's something else you got to look for. So there's also something else to think about, which is your source for logs, and that's a whole other venture right there. I would do that as well way before you get your sawmill, you know. So do your market research, look for logs, and also your zoning before you buy your mill. But as far as the sawmill business goes, and the point for this whole video, you can make good money as a side business running a sawmill, and he could do it full-time if he wanted to. He works a full-time job just down the road somewhere else, but if he wanted to quit that job, he could run that sawmill there every day, all day, and be just fine. But some people like to have a steady job on top of that with benefits and stuff, and I totally understand. I was in that boat several years ago. But it is doable, so you can have a sawmill like that. It can pay for itself very fast by running it on the weekends and on your days off, or you can go all in and do it full time once you've established your business. So it's very doable. For you aspiring sawmill guys out there that want to get into the business, I think that covers a lot of the entry-level steps that you have to take just to get going. And once you get going, you'll find all kind of niches out there. When I first started, I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you. I thought I was going to do portable sawmill work, which I enjoyed. It just didn't pay real great back in. I'm not sure what guys are charging now, but I really didn't have a clue what I was going to do with it. I didn't do my market research or nothing like that. I made a lot of mistakes early on, but luckily I had a full-time job which offset that, and it really wasn't a big deal. But I should have been better prepared. But I found a niche early on with live edge slabs and selling them green to wholesale guys, which was a really good turnaround for me, because I could buy a walnut log pretty cheap from a tree service, do live edge slabs, and sell the same log to somebody that wanted to dry it, and make pretty good money off just one log. And I still do that sometimes today, actually, to another wholesale guy that I deal with. But there's all kind of niches that you'll find once you get your foot in the door. And as far as the most important thing I'm going to talk about today out of all this stuff is education and how to run a sawmill properly and how to read a log and get the best yield. And to my knowledge, there's no good book out there about sawmilling. I've actually talked to Robert Milton down at Hobby Hardwoods, Alabama, many times about this, about somebody should actually sit down like Robert and write a book on sawmilling. Just the meat and the potatoes there, the main things about it, the meat and the potatoes. That's a Tennessee slang right there for you people that don't know what I'm talking about. But somebody should really sit down one day who's got the knowledge like Robert, who can write, and put a good book together on that, because there's no publication out there that I'm aware of that's really good about really describing how to saw a log and really keeping your interest in it. Maybe I should write one day. I don't know. I've thought about it myself, but Lord knows I ain't got the time. So education, how do you get it if there's not a book out there? Well, there's YouTube. That helps out a lot. I try to share what I know on YouTube. Robert Milton shares what he knows on YouTube. So if you want to check out Hobby Hardwoods Alabama on YouTube, their Facebook page as well. He puts some stuff on there, but most of it's on YouTube. Great resource right there. Robert's a wealth of knowledge. My buddy Jake Dean down in Georgia, he's got a few videos on YouTube, not a whole lot. He's also a good wealth of knowledge, but he is so busy down there sawing up cypress and yellow pine. You know, he don't have time to run a camera every day, and I completely understand. He's moving a lot of lumber through his place. But there's, a few good resources. YouTube, or several guys on YouTube making good videos about sawmilling. And the way that I learned a lot of my stuff was a few older books about woodworking by Roy Underhill. You know, those books are easy to find. And the Forestry Forum. And the Forestry Forum is free. They're not paying me to tell you guys about this or nothing like that, although I am good friends with the owner of it, Jeff. You can go on the Forestry Forum and just read topics on there and read about people's problems and how they solved it. And back about 2010, when I first started thinking about getting into sawmilling, once I had an interest in sawmilling as a child. I didn't get into it around 2010, or my interest didn't peak up till then. That's a whole different story right there. But I used to get on the Forestry Forum, and I would read for hours and hours about what guys were doing on there, what problems they had, their sawing techniques. All those posts are still on there. So there's a great source of education right there. You don't want to post over there if you don't want to. You don't want to reply, but you can get on there and read other people's problems and how they solved them. Huge wealth of knowledge over there those guys are. A lot of those guys have passed, actually, unfortunately. There's still a lot of knowledge over there that's just sitting there. All you gotta do is go over there and log on to it and start reading. So I think I've covered mostly everything I was wanting to hit on today. And if I think about something else I didn't cover, I'll add it later in this video because I'm not done for the day. It's only 11 o'clock. And I got a lot of work to do back at the farm. I'm gonna take you guys with me. But if there's something I didn't cover today, put it down in the comments. If I can't answer it, maybe somebody else will. And if you'd like to have a one-on-one consultation, like a FaceTime with me, or a way to contact me with sawmill questions, you can go join my Patreon page, and I can kind of help you out over there. And if I don't have an answer for you, I know where I can get the answer most of the time, so we'll take care of you over there. But it is a paid subscription because my time is important and my time is not free. It's just the way it is. So anyways, I'm gonna head on to the house here and get started on my projects for the day. I'll take you guys with me. And a real big thank you to Daniel for letting me tag along today and film his operation. And if you live in Northeast Tennessee or Southwest Virginia and you need a source for hemlock, send me an email and put Daniel in the subject line, and I'll send you his phone number. You can call, place an order. But just know it may be summertime before you see your lumber because he is way behind. But he does good work. He's a good sawyer. Before he had his Wood-Mizer, he ran a circle sawmill for a long time at his dad's place, so he knows what he's doing. Very good at sawing up lumber.